Job postings in Singapore are down some 17% on year, according to hiring platform Indeed. Still, it says skill shortages in sectors like education, healthcare and finance persist, and these gaps could signal potential growth areas. Looking at the data, April's new job postings fell nearly 3% from March, marking the fourth straight month of decline and hitting the lowest level since May 2021. Jobs in cleaning and sanitation saw the sharpest drop of 56%. Childcare and pharmacy roles are next, each falling nearly 39%. Job portal Indeed says demand for these roles have eased after pandemic-driven highs. It adds that in the childcare space, rising costs may also be discouraging employers from expanding their headcount. But some sectors are bucking the trend, with job positions for personal care and home health rising by almost 29%, reflecting rising demand from Singapore's aging population. Data analytics climbing as well, up 9.5%, signaling recovering in the tech sector. Singapore's job postings growth also performing on par with countries like Australia and Spain, with a low unemployment rate of just 2.1%. The labour market remains tight, although geopolitical uncertainties are casting a shadow over the hiring outlook.
It often takes a little bit of time for changes in the overall economy to trigger changes in the job market and job creation. So business leaders would be reviewing the economic environment, both in Singapore and globally, trying to get a sense of what it all means, and then making headcount decisions accordingly. And at the moment, there's probably a little bit too much uncertainty in the market for them to be making meaningful changes at the moment.
And for more, I'm joined by Richard Bradshaw. He's the CEO of Asia and Europe of Ethos BeathChapman, a headhunting firm. Richard, global uncertainties have been impacting the job market. Have you also noticed a downward trend in job postings available in Singapore?
Look, absolutely. I think everyone has seen that happening, from job seekers themselves to headhunters such as ourselves. I think we need to put that in context. Whilst there is a downward trend, the pretext to that is the employment and hiring boom, especially in the tech sectors during 2021 and 2022. And look, I think it's also important to note that whilst there is this downward trend, important sectors to the Singapore job market ecosystem, as it were, such as financial services, still remain very resilient. And so whilst there's a downward trend, I do think there's context to put around it, which makes more sense.
So this downtrend, do you see it as a short-term concern, or is there potential for medium to long-term pain impact as well?
Yeah, it's the big question on so many people's lips right now. Will there be an end to this? How much longer? Look, speaking, day in, day out with clients, candidates across a variety of sectors, I think the general consensus is that the short term is turbulence. Long term, we're very much seeing a transformational shift here, and remarkable shifts, as it were, are likely to still happen, I think, in most people's minds for a number of years still to come. Breakthroughs are happening at breakneck speed, advances in technology, changes in how we work and why we work. They're more powerful, and companies are adopting them more and more aggressively. Just look at the onset of AI these last few years. Look, if you'd indulge me, it's probably way too late in the evening to be shouting prophecies, but I do think in many people's minds we are observing quite a fundamental reshaping of the job market, probably since 40, 50 years and the sort of the onset of the computer and digital age. So, absolutely short-term turbulence, and but undoubtedly mid and long-term impact too.
All right, Richard, let's hit the pause button here for a bit. Don't go yet. We want to take a look at this report from CNA Nashra Rohin. She's found that some fresh graduates aren't just searching for opportunities, they're creating their own. But while it's not all smooth sailing, they remain hopeful and determined to make it work. Let's have a look.
After 4 months grinding hard to look for a job, this 25-year-old decided to take a leap and start off on her own, even though there were some offers on the table.
I just couldn't really find something that resonated with me greatly. Starting a brand for me has always been on the to-do list. It was a matter of when. So I think amidst that a bit of an uncertainty in the job market, I was like, you know what, why not start now?
After 3 months of brewing, this cafe was brought to life.
I think it's no doubt a little, it brings a bit of uneasiness when we see the recent layoffs or just how competitive and extra cautious the job market has been in the recent years, especially in industries that were considered stable last time. Despite all of these economic uncertainties, I still remain hopeful. And I think my generation is just navigating it in a different way compared to our parents' times, yeah.
For 27-year-old Hair, he wanted to shoot his shot at his own media production business fresh out of school. Now, he's paying it forward.
I work with a lot of people who are fresh graduates and stuff like that, and I think the collaboration is better, and it also helps me manage my resources better because they are able to pivot and work with a more lean setup, and they're able to innovate and find crafty ways and solutions to do projects, even if let's say we have a very low budget shoot.
But rolling with the changes hasn't been easy, especially with shrinking client budgets.
Companies are looking to make more content for less. People want content to go viral. And all these things, they unfortunately cost money. But then we've also tried to be creative in the ways that we resource for the project.
Even though he has his sights set on expanding his business, he's focused on building something sustainable, one step at a time.
Right, Richard, do we think we need to rethink the way we help different groups of people find jobs?
Absolutely, and look, it's always disheartening to hear stories such as the one we've just seen there, and look, within that question, I suppose we're asking: are traditional job search methods now becoming inadequate? Do we need to rethink them? And absolutely, yes, I do. If you look at our methodologies now, we've been changing fundamentally how we go about searching for talent these last few years. And it's not just a broad brushstroke, to really ensure various different groups are getting the right support that they need. You need to break down the demographics and provide personalized support. I do think there's a lot of these sort of initiatives going on in Singapore already. There's a brand new point-based unemployment scheme, which is really looking at the business and something which I'm sure is going to have a profound effect. There's a large number of employer partnerships between the Singapore government and various employers in Singapore, and a lot of personalized support and sort of job coaching per person, or sort of per unique subsector or subset of the demographic job seekers in Singapore. So absolutely, I think a rethink is needed, but also encouragingly and importantly, a lot underway also.
All right, Richard, very quickly, a last question. How far can retraining go in addressing the trend as well? Well, look, it has to be there. And I think that it's still early days because, again, it's quite a seismic shift there. If you look at job markets for, 50, 100, couple of hundred years, you're trained for one thing and you become better and better at that one thing.
and reskilling and upskilling is relatively new or newer concept. So, look, I think it can do a certain amount of good. And again, really encouraging to see in Singapore the progress that's being made and the amount of initiatives and support on hand for those that are happy to adapt and pivot quickly and reskill and upskill.
All right, thanks for that. Richard Bradshaw, CEO of Asia and Europe at Ethos BeathChapman.